The twin moons of the planet Velrath hung low in the violet sky, their light spilling over a palace built from crystal and steel. Inside that palace, behind tall, shimmering curtains, sat Princess Lyra, her golden eyes fixed on the horizon. She looked calm, but only from a distance. Inside, she was breaking. The council chamber behind her echoed with laughter. Alien nobles, her own kind, mocked her in whispers that weren't even hidden anymore. "She's beautiful but barren," one sneered. "An heirless princess is no princess," said another. Lyra heard every word. She had stopped reacting long ago. Her infertility had become a public joke, a stain on her royal bloodline. That morning, the council gathered again. The Empire was at war with humans, those strange, defiant creatures from the blue planet who never bowed, even when outnumbered. The Velrath generals wanted peace, but not through diplomacy. Instead, they wanted amusement. "Send the Infertile one," said Lord Varric, smirking. "A barren princess can't give birth to heirs." Let the humans laugh as well. The court erupted in cruel laughter. And so, a ship was prepared. Lyra was offered, as a symbol of peace to the human colonies, a gesture that everyone in the court knew was a farce. Her mother wept in silence. Her father, the Emperor, said nothing. The moment the ship doors closed behind her, she was forgotten. The ship carrying Lyra drifted for days through the cold emptiness between stars. Her attendants had been dismissed. Only a single guard and a translator droid remained. She sat alone, staring at her reflection in the glass. Her silver skin pale against the starlight, her eyes heavy with unspoken pain. "What will they do to me?" she finally asked the droid. "Humans are unpredictable," the machine replied in its hollow tone. "They value kindness, but they also value strength." When her ship landed on Earth, the humans didn't treat her as an enemy, but not as royalty either. They had been told she was part of a cultural exchange, though whispers spread quickly among the soldiers stationed at the landing site. "An alien princess?" one muttered. "She doesn't look dangerous," said another. And then someone laughed. "A gift from the stars. Huh? Guess even aliens have jokes." Lyra lowered her eyes, pretending not to understand. That night, after hours of silence and tension, a man stepped into her quarters. He wasn't a general or an ambassador. He was a mechanic, covered in oil and dust, his name patch reading Ethan Cole. He wasn't supposed to be there, but he'd heard a rumor that the alien girl had been sent as a mock gift, and he wanted to see if it was true. When he saw her sitting in that cold metallic room, he froze. She looked fragile, almost human, except for the faint glow under her skin and the sadness in her eyes. He took off his cap awkwardly. Do you understand me?" he asked softly. Lyra blinked, then nodded a little. "Yes," she whispered. Her voice was melodic, but unsure. Ethan scratched his neck, unsure what to say next. "They didn't even give you a blanket," he muttered, looking around. "Typical." He took off his jacket and handed it to her. She hesitated, then accepted it with trembling fingers. It was the first act of kindness she had received in years. Later, outside the quarters, Ethan was confronted by Commander Ross, his superior. "What were you doing in there, Cole?" Ross barked. "Just making sure the visitor was treated right," Ethan replied calmly. Ross scoffed. "That's not our problem. She's here because her people think this is funny. You think you can fix that?" Ethan didn't answer, but deep down, something inside him refused to see Lyra as a joke. Over the next few days, Ethan volunteered for every maintenance task near Lyra's quarters. He brought her tea, food, blankets. Sometimes he just talked about Earth, about the rain, about things she had never seen. At first, she didn't respond. Then slowly, her silence began to crack. "Your planet is loud," she said one evening, her voice soft as a sigh. Ethan smiled. "Yeah, but it's alive." He told her about children playing in the streets, about music, about colors. She listened like someone hearing stories from another universe. "On my world," she said, "everything is duty, honor, bloodlines. I was never allowed to be." Ethan leaned back, looking at her. "Well, maybe here you get to decide what being means." For a moment, she smiled, small, fragile, but real. But outside, political tensions grew. Human leaders wanted to send her back. Alien envoys mocked the humans for keeping their barren princess. Everyone believed the arrangement was pointless, except Ethan. One night, alarms echoed across the base. The alien vessel sent to retrieve Lyra had arrived, without warning. Soldiers scrambled. The ship broadcasted a single message. Return the princess. Her joke is ended. Lyra stood at the window, trembling. For the first time, she looked afraid. I don't want to go, she whispered. Not back there. Not as a joke again. Ethan turned to her. Then don't. She looked at him, shocked. They'll come for me. Then I'll make sure they don't find you. Before she could respond, the base shook. The alien ship began descending. Lyra's heart pounded as she turned to Ethan, realizing that this human, the simple mechanic, was ready to defy the stars for her. As the ground quaked and lights flickered, Ethan grabbed her hand. Come with me, he said firmly. And for the first time in her life, Lyra didn't hesitate. They ran into the darkness, past guards, alarms, and chaos. Outside, the rain poured down, washing away the dust and the humiliation that had followed her across galaxies. She looked up at the sky, toward the ship that once carried her shame, and then at the man beside her, a human, a mechanic, the first person who ever looked at her and didn't see a curse. The storm outside raged like the sky itself wanted to hide them. Rain hammered against the ground as Ethan led Lyra through the dark, half-abandoned service tunnels behind a human military outpost. The blaring alarms grew distant with every step, replaced by the pounding of their hearts and the echo of boots splashing in shallow water. Keep moving, Ethan whispered. His hand stayed tightly around hers. Lyra's bare feet slipped on the metal floor, but she refused to let go. Her glowing eyes flickered in the dim light. Behind them, a siren blared. Unauthorized personnel detected in Sector 9. They reached a maintenance hatch. Ethan yanked it open with a grunt. Cold air rushed in, smelling of oil and wet earth. Beyond it was the open night and the silhouette of the nearby forest. Out there? She asked, her voice trembling. It's better than in here, he said, forcing a small grin. You trust me? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Ethan pulled her out into the rain. The forest swallowed them instantly. They ran for what felt like hours, guided only by lightning flashes that illuminated their path. Lyra's long silver hair clung to her face. Her metallic skin shimmered with raindrops. For the first time in her life, she felt alive. No royal guards, no palace walls, only chaos and choice. When they finally stopped under the twisted roots of an ancient tree, Ethan caught his breath and turned to her. You okay? Yes, she whispered. But they will find us. Ethan looked back toward the glowing skyline of the base. Not tonight. He opened a small emergency bag he'd grabbed before fleeing. Rations, water, a folded blanket. He wrapped it around her shoulders. She sat silently, staring at him as he shivered beside her. Why? She asked softly. Why what? Why help me? You could have let them take me. You would have been safe. Ethan leaned back against a tree trunk, rain dripping from his hair. I saw your eyes, he said, the way you looked at the stars. Like they'd already taken everything from you. I couldn't let them take you again. Lyra's throat tightened. No one had ever spoken to her that way. Not with pity, but with belief. Back at the base, Commander Ross watched satellite footage of the fleeing pair. Find them, he ordered, before her people do. But it was too late. The Velrath ship had already begun scanning the surface. Alien search drones, sleek and silent, spread out like silver insects across the forest. In the darkness, Lyra suddenly froze. Her pupils widened. They're here. Ethan frowned. You can sense them? My kind, we can feel the pulse of our ships. They're close. He looked around, heart racing. Then we move again. They found refuge in a small abandoned cabin deep in the woods, a relic from the old war. Inside, everything was damp and broken, but it had walls and a roof. Ethan scavenged for anything useful, while Lyra sat quietly by a dusty window. Her reflection looked different now. Softer, More human somehow. You hate your people? Ethan asked suddenly, breaking the silence. She shook her head slowly. No, but I hate what they made me feel. Broken. Useless. I am a princess who cannot give life. Ethan turned to her, frowning. That's not what makes someone alive. You think being human means being perfect? We break all the time. But we get up again. His words lingered in the air like warmth in the cold. When he looked at her again, her golden eyes were glistening. Not from the rain this time, but from something she didn't understand. Hours passed. The rain softened to a drizzle. Ethan sat by the fire he'd built with old scraps, while Lyra slowly reached her hands toward the warmth. The flickering light made her silver skin glow like molten metal. Your world is loud, she murmured, but your heart is quiet. He chuckled softly. That's poetic. You should write that down. She smiled faintly. On Velrath, we are taught to fight for our bloodline, to prove we are worthy of continuing it. When they found I could not, her voice cracked. They looked at me like a dead branch. Ethan leaned forward. You're not dead, Lyra. You're the most alive person I've ever met. Her eyes met his, shimmering with something fragile and dangerous, a connection that neither of them had planned, but both felt growing stronger with every heartbeat. Suddenly, the cabin trembled. A low hum filled the air, alien energy signatures. Lyra gasped, They've found us. Ethan jumped his feet and grabbed the old rifle he'd found near the door. Outside, blue lights cut through the trees as search drones approached. The hum grew louder, almost deafening. Lyra stood beside him. You cannot fight them. They are too strong. I don't care. He raised a rifle. They're not taking you. The first drone burst through the trees, scanning with a blinding beam. Ethan fired. The bullet ricocheted harmlessly off its metal shell. Lyra raised her hands, and suddenly, the air around her shimmered. The drone systems glitched. The beam flickered, then exploded in a burst of sparks. Ethan stared in shock. What? How did you do that? Lyra's chest rose and fell rapidly. I don't know. My kind, our power comes from emotion. I've never felt this before. More drones appeared. Lyra stepped forward, her eyes glowing fiercely. The air vibrated with energy. Ethan covered his face as a pulse of golden light shot from her body. Waves of force that tore through the forest and sent the drones crashing down. When it was over, the trees glowed faintly with alien energy. The air smelled of ozone and smoke. Ethan slowly lowered his hand. Remind me never to make you mad. Lyra looked at her trembling hands. I didn't know I could do that. Ethan smiled, stepping closer. Guess Earth changed more than you thought. Far above the clouds, inside the Velrath warship, Lord Varric watched the readings with disbelief. Impossible, he hissed. The Infertile one just triggered a full psionic surge. That power should not exist in her. Should we retrieve her? An officer asked. Varric's eyes narrowed. No, if she lives among them, she will destroy herself. Let the human have his toy. The shame will eat her faster than any weapon. He turned away, unaware that destiny had just shifted beneath his feet. Down in the quiet forest, Ethan helped Lyra sit by the fire again. Her energy was fading. Her glow dimmed. Rest, he whispered. You're safer now. She leaned her head against his shoulder. I was sent to you as a joke, she murmured weakly. But you made me feel real. Ethan looked down at her, his jaw tightening. Then let's prove him wrong. Her eyes fluttered closed, but her lips curved into a faint smile. For the first time in her life, the princess who was never meant to be a mother began to dream of a world where she could choose her own fate. The morning came quietly after the storm. Sunlight filtered through the broken cabin roof, falling over Lyra's face. Her silver skin shimmered faintly, but her glow had weakened. She stirred slightly, breathing softly, her head still resting on Ethan's shoulder. He didn't move for a long time. He just watched her, this being who wasn't supposed to exist like this. A princess sent as a mockery, now asleep in his arms after destroying alien drones with a power she didn't even know she had. When she finally opened her eyes, her golden irises reflected the sunlight. Is it morning? She whispered. Yeah, he said quietly. And you're still here. Her lips curved slightly. I thought maybe I dreamed it all. You didn't, he replied. You saved us. He stood up and walked outside the cabin. The forest smelled of wet leaves and burnt metal. Drone parts were scattered everywhere, still smoking. The air shimmered faintly with alien radiation. He looked toward the horizon. He knew it wouldn't be long before both humans and aliens came for them. The moment she unleashed that kind of power, she became the most valuable and most hunted being on Earth. Lyra stepped out behind him, the blanket still around her shoulders. They will come again, she said. Yeah, he agreed. That's why we're not staying. Where will we go? Ethan exhaled slowly. There's a place, an old bunker up north. My brother used to work there before the wars ended. It's off-grid. Lyra nodded faintly, trusting him without question. It was strange. Back home, she had been surrounded by guards, advisors, servants, and yet she'd never felt safe. But with one human man in the middle of nowhere, she finally did. They began their journey on foot. Ethan scavenged a small transport bike from a wrecked drone carrier, patched it together with wire and duct tape, and made it run again. You humans, Lyra said softly as she watched him work. You create from nothing. Even your broken things live again. Ethan smirked. We don't give up easily. Guess that's what keeps us alive. When the engine sputtered to life, she smiled, a real, bright smile that made the morning seem warmer. She climbed on behind him, her arms wrapping around his waist hesitantly. As they rode to the forest, the wind caught her hair, and for a moment, she felt almost human, free from titles, free from shame. Meanwhile, far above Earth, in the Velrath flagship, alarms blared again. The data from Lyra's energy surge continued to defy all readings. Lord Varric stood before the Emperor, his head bowed. My liege, the barren one, she has awakened a dormant psionic field. This power should not exist in her lineage. The Emperor's face hardened. You said she was infertile. She is, sire, Varric said quickly, but the surge she emitted could alter DNA itself. If the humans learn to harness that power, they could rise beyond control. The Emperor turned away, his voice like steel. Then bring her back, alive. Varric hesitated. And the human? A pause. Erase him. On Earth, Lyra and Ethan finally reached an old highway, long abandoned and cracked by time. The bike's battery flickered, nearly dead. Ethan checked a map on his old tablet. The bunker is about 30 miles north. If we cut through the valley, we can make it before dark. Lyra tilted her head. You risk everything for me. Why? He looked up, meeting her gaze. Because I think you were sent here for a reason, and it's not to be someone's joke. Lyra stared at him, speechless. Back home, no one had ever spoken to her with such conviction. Humans, she realized, had something her people had lost, heart. As they rode onward, a low rumble echoed in the distance. Ethan frowned. That's not thunder. Moments later, the clouds split open, and a silver warship appeared, descending fast. Hold on, Ethan shouted, pushing the throttle to its limit. The bike roared as they sped down the cracked road. Lyra turned her head. Drones spilled from the ship like a swarm of metallic birds. Energy beams scorched the ground around them. Trees exploded into flame. Ethan swerved wildly, trying to dodge the blasts. One beam struck close enough to flip the bike. They crashed hard, tumbling across the dirt. Ethan rolled onto his back, coughing, his arm bleeding. Lyra crawled toward him, fear in her glowing eyes. Ethan! I'm fine, he gasped, trying to stand. Run! But before they could move, a massive figure descended from the ship, a towering alien soldier in dark armor. His voice boomed. Princess Lyra of Velrath, by order of the Emperor, you are to return immediately. Lyra rose slowly, trembling. No, I will not go back. The soldier's gaze turned cold. You dishonor your bloodline. You defy your people. Ethan stepped between them. She said no. The alien's weapon charged, a bright pulse of blue energy humming. Ethan raised his rifle, knowing it wouldn't be enough. Lyra's heart raced. She felt that strange again, the same power that had destroyed the drones. She reached for Ethan's hand, and suddenly, the world exploded with light. A golden wave surged outward, knocking the alien soldier off his feet. The ship's systems went haywire, its engines screaming as energy overloaded. The ground trembled violently as Lyra's eyes blazed like miniature suns. Ethan shielded his face, shouting, "Lyra, stop! You'll burn yourself out." Her voice echoed through the chaos. "They will not take you from me." The pulse rippled out like a living storm, tearing through metal, disintegrating the drones in midair. The warship jerked, engines failing, and spiraled out of control before crashing in a fiery explosion beyond the horizon. When it was over, Lyra collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath. Ethan caught her before she fell completely. Her skin was hot to the touch, her glow fading again. Hey, stay with me," he said, panic in his voice. Her eyes fluttered open weakly. "Did we survive?" He laughed breathlessly. "Barely. But yeah, you did it." Lyra's trembling hand rose to touch his face. I felt something inside me. Not anger, something else. "What?" She smiled faintly. "Hope." High above the planet, human satellites captured the entire event. Within hours, every government channel buzzed with reports. Unknown energy signature, potential weapon or alien life form. The humans began to move. The aliens began to regroup. And in the middle of it all, a mechanic and a princess hid among the ashes, holding onto each other as the universe prepared to hunt them both. Ethan looked at her, determination burning in his eyes. "No more running," he said. "If they want you, they'll have to go through me." Lyra's voice trembled, but her words were steady. "Then let us face them together." The morning came quietly after the storm. Sunlight filtered through the broken cabin roof, falling over Lyra's face. Her silver skin shimmered faintly, but her glow had weakened. She stirred slightly, breathing softly, her head still resting on Ethan's shoulder. He didn't move for a long time. He just watched her, this being who wasn't supposed to exist like this. A princess sent as a mockery, now asleep in his arms after destroying alien drones with a power she didn't even know she had. When she finally opened her eyes, her golden irises reflected the sunlight. "Is it morning?" she whispered. "Yeah," he said quietly. "And you're still here." Her lips curved slightly. "I thought maybe I dreamed it all." "You didn't," he replied. "You saved us." He stood up and walked outside the cabin. The forest smelled of wet leaves and burnt metal. Drone parts were scattered everywhere, still smoking. The air shimmered faintly with alien radiation. He looked toward the horizon. He knew it wouldn't be long before both humans and aliens came for them. The moment she unleashed that kind of power, she became the most valuable and most hunted being on Earth. Lyra stepped out behind him, the blanket still around her shoulders. "They will come again," she said. "Yeah," he agreed. "That's why we're not staying." "Where will we go?" Ethan exhaled slowly. "There's a place, an old bunker up north. My brother used to work there before the wars ended. It's off-grid." Lyra nodded faintly, trusting him without question. It was strange. Back home, she had been surrounded by guards, advisors, servants, and yet she'd never felt safe. But with one human man in the middle of nowhere, she finally did. They began their journey on foot. Ethan scavenged a small transport bike from a wrecked drone carrier, patched it together with wire and duct tape, and made it run again. "You humans," Lyra said softly as she watched him work. "You create from nothing. Even your broken things live again." Ethan smirked. "We don't give up easily. Guess that's what keeps us alive." When the engine sputtered to life, she smiled, a real, bright smile that made the morning seem warmer. She climbed on behind him, her arms wrapping around his waist hesitantly. As they rode to the forest, the wind caught her hair, and for a moment, she felt almost human, free from titles, free from shame. Meanwhile, far above Earth, in the Velrath flagship, alarms blared again. The data from Lyra's energy surge continued to defy all readings. Lord Varric stood before the Emperor, his head bowed. "My liege," The barren one. She has awakened a dormant psionic field. This power should not exist in her lineage. The Emperor's face hardened. You said she was infertile. She is, sire, Varric said quickly, but the surge she emitted could alter DNA itself. If the humans learn to harness that power, they could rise beyond control. The Emperor turned away, his voice like steel. Then bring her back. Alive. Varric hesitated. And the human? A pause. Erase him. On Earth, Lyra and Ethan finally reached an old highway, long abandoned and cracked by time. The bike's battery flickered, nearly dead. Ethan checked a map on his old tablet. The bunker is about 30 miles north. If we cut through the valley, we can make it before dark. Lyra tilted her head. You risk everything for me. Why? He looked up, meeting her gaze. Because I think you were sent here for a reason, and it's not to be someone's joke. Lyra stared at him, speechless. Back home, no one had ever spoken to her with such conviction. Humans, she realized, had something her people had lost, heart. As they rode onward, a low rumble echoed in the distance. Ethan frowned. That's not thunder. Moments later, the clouds split open, and a silver warship appeared, descending fast. Hold on. Ethan shouted, pushing the throttle to its limit. The bike roared as they sped down the cracked road. Lyra turned her head. Drones spilled from the ship like a swarm of metallic birds. Energy beams scorched the ground around them. Trees exploded into flame. Ethan swerved wildly, trying to dodge the blasts. One beam struck close enough to flip the bike. They crashed hard, tumbling across the dirt. Ethan rolled onto his back, coughing, his arm bleeding. Lyra crawled toward him, fear in her glowing eyes. Ethan! I'm fine, he gasped, trying to stand. Run! But before they could move, a massive figure descended from the ship, a towering alien soldier in dark armor. His voice boomed. Princess Lyra of Elrath, by order of the Emperor, you are to return immediately. Lyra rose slowly, trembling. No, I will not go back. The soldier's gaze turned cold. You dishonor your bloodline. You defy your people. Ethan stepped between them. She said no. The alien's weapon charged, a bright pulse of blue energy humming. Ethan raised his rifle, knowing it wouldn't be enough. Lyra's heart raced. She felt that strange again, the same power that had destroyed the drones. She reached for Ethan's hand, and suddenly, the world exploded with light. A golden wave surged outward, knocking the alien soldier off his feet. The ship's systems went haywire, its engines screaming as energy overloaded. The ground trembled violently as Lyra's eyes blazed like miniature suns. Ethan shielded his face, shouting, Lyra, stop! You'll burn yourself out. Her voice echoed through the chaos. They will not take you from me. The pulse rippled out like a living storm, tearing through metal, disintegrating the drones in midair. The warship jerked, engines failing, and spiraled out of control before crashing in a fiery explosion beyond the horizon. When it was over, Lyra collapsed to her knees, gasping for breath. Ethan caught her before she fell completely. Her skin was hot to the touch, her glow fading again. Hey, stay with me, he said, panic in his voice. Her eyes fluttered open weakly. Did we survive? He laughed breathlessly. Barely. But yeah, you did it. Lyra's trembling hand rose to touch his face. I felt something inside me. Not anger, something else. What? She smiled faintly. Hope. High above the planet, human satellites captured the entire event. Within hours, every government channel buzzed with reports. Unknown energy signature. Potential weapon or alien life form? The humans began to move. The aliens began to regroup. And in the middle of it all, a mechanic and a princess hid among the ashes, holding onto each other as the universe prepared to hunt them both. Ethan looked at her, determination burning in his eyes. No more running, he said. If they want you, they'll have to go through me. Lyra's voice trembled, but her words were steady. Then let us face them together. The days that followed were tense beyond measure. Blackwood facility became a silent storm of whispers and locked doors. Scientists no longer spoke freely. Guards moved like shadows. Everyone knew something impossible had happened inside the alien containment wing. Princess Lyra, once labeled barren, a royal embarrassment, now carried life inside her. She sat in her small observation chamber, staring at the faint glow under her palm. It pulsed softly, like a star in miniature. Not cold, not mechanical, but alive. Each heartbeat of light resonated within her chest. Ethan sat nearby, watching her with awe and worry mixed in his eyes. "Are you sure?" he whispered. Lyra nodded slowly. "It's not like human life. It's energy first, spirit before form. But yes, Ethan, it's real." He leaned forward, his voice barely above a breath. "Then it's ours." Her golden eyes lifted to meet his. For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them was filled with something vast, something that transcended biology or species, a connection deeper than any law of their worlds. Meanwhile, beyond the walls of Blackridge, chaos erupted. The Velrath Empire intercepted the human broadcast reporting unidentified energy-based reproduction. It didn't take long for their spies to realize whose energy it was. In the Imperial War Hall, Lord Varric slammed his fist against the table. "Blasphemy! The Infertile One carrying a hybrid abomination." The Emperor stood, his voice echoing through the chamber. "If what you say is true, then she carries more than shame. She carries a weapon." "She carries hope," whispered the Empress quietly, her face hidden behind a veil. "Hope that we destroyed." The Emperor ignored her. "Prepare the fleet. Retrieve the princess. Terminate the human." Back on Earth, Commander Ross entered the lab with a group of top-level officials. Ethan instinctively stood in front of Lyra as they approached. Ross raised a hand. "Easy, Cole. We're not here to hurt her." Lyra's voice was calm but sharp. "You intend to study me." Ross hesitated. "We need to understand what's happening. That child, whatever it is, could be dangerous." "It's not a weapon," Ethan snapped. Ross turned toward him. "Then what is it, Cole? The first cross-species creation in history? A miracle? You don't even know what it's capable of." Ethan's jaw clenched. "Neither do you." Lyra stood, her voice trembling but resolute. "You call a child of two worlds. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's what both our races need to survive." Ross stared at her in silence. Then he gave a small nod. "You'll be moved to a secure wing. No tests, no harm, but you stay under watch." Ethan exhaled in relief. He didn't trust Ross completely, but for now it was enough. Weeks passed. Lyra's energy stabilized, but her glow grew brighter each day. The doctors monitored her quietly, fascinated by the way her body adapted. The golden pulse within her began to form distinct patterns, something resembling DNA, but unlike any known life form. She could feel the consciousness inside her, not like a normal mind, but a gentle awareness, curious, warm, and alive. One evening, as the lights dimmed, she whispered to Ethan, "It feels you." He frowned. "What do you mean?" "When you touch me," she said softly, "it reacts. It knows you're near." He stared at her belly, still flat, but faintly glowing beneath her skin, and reached out carefully. As his hand brushed her side, the light brightened. Ethan's voice trembled. "It knows me." Lyra smiled through tears. "It knows us." Far above Earth, the Velrath fleet entered orbit undetected. Inside the flagship, Lord Varric stood before his strike team. "The Emperor wants her alive," he growled. "The child, too, if possible. The human is expendable." He looked out through the observation glass. Earth's blue glow reflected in his eyes. "This ends tonight." At midnight, alarms blared across Blackridge. Ross burst into the observation hall, shouting orders. Multiple unknown signatures approaching from orbit. Everyone to lockdown. Ethan's heart pounded as he looked at Lyra. "They've found us." She stood quickly, her glow flaring in fear. "It's them, my father's ships." Ross pulled his weapon. "Cole, get her to the bunker level. Now!" They ran through the corridors as the ceiling shook from bombardments. Sirens wailed. Lights flickered red. The first explosion came from above, the alien strike pod's breaching facility roof. Dozens of armored soldiers poured in, weapons humming with blue plasma. Ethan ducked behind cover, firing back with whatever weapon he could find. The halls filled with chaos, gunfire, smoke, and the shriek of alien tech tearing through steel. Lyra grabbed his hand, her eyes glowing bright gold. "We can't fight them all." "Then what do we do?" he shouted over the noise. "We run." She raised her hands, and the walls shimmered. For a second, reality itself seemed to ripple. They vanished just as plasma bolts tore through the space where they had stood. They reappeared miles away, on a dark hillside overlooking the ruins of the facility. Ethan gasped, disoriented. How did you do that?" Lyra collapsed to her knees, panting. "I don't know. It's the child. It lent me its strength." He knelt beside her. "You're burning yourself out again." She shook her head. "It wants to live. It's protecting us." Below them, the night sky blazed as human and alien forces clashed in the air. Blackridge was gone, swallowed by smoke and light. Ethan looked down at her glowing form. "We can't stay here." Lyra's eyes softened. "Then where can we go, Ethan? There is no place left for us." He looked at her, at the faint heartbeat of gold beneath her hand, and said quietly, "Then we'll make one." As dawn rose over the shattered horizon, the two fugitives began their journey once more, together. Behind them, Earth's government scrambled. The Velrath fleet circled like vultures, and whispers spread across the stars, an impossible being yet unborn, a child of two worlds. But in that fragile moment, beneath the quiet sunrise, Ethan placed his hand over hers and smiled faintly. "Whatever happens," he said, "we protect them, no matter what it takes." Lyra looked at him, her voice trembling with hope. "Then we protect each other." The wind carried the promise into the light of morning. Somewhere deep within her, the child stirred, a faint pulse of gold that felt like the beginning of a new universe. Wind howled across the frozen wastelands of northern Canada. A snow-covered cave, half hidden beneath ancient pines, flickered faintly with firelight. Inside, Ethan sat sharpening a piece of metal into a crude blade, while Lyra slept beside the fading embers, her glow dim but steady. It had been 12 days since the fall of Blackridge. They had traveled mostly at night, hiding from both human drones and alien patrols. The world had become a hunt, and they were the prize. Ethan glanced at her as she stirred, clutching her chest protectively. The golden light beneath her skin pulsed in slow, gentle rhythm. "How are you feeling?" he asked softly. Lyra opened her eyes, her voice weak but calm. "It grows stronger every day. I can feel it learning, listening." He frowned. "Listening?" She touched her temple, not with ears, with thought. Ethan set down the blade, uneasy. "You mean it's communicating?" Lyra nodded. "Sometimes in words, sometimes in emotions. It feels pure, innocent, but powerful." Outside, the wind roared louder, as if the world itself were warning them what was coming. Far above Earth's atmosphere, the Velrath flagship hovered in silent orbit. Lord Varric stood before a hollow map, projecting their search grid. "The princess and her hybrid offspring cannot be allowed to survive," he snarled. "Deploy recon units to every hemisphere. Burn the forests if you must." An officer hesitated. "And the humans?" Varric's eyes gleamed. "Let them exhaust themselves trying to protect her. When they fail, we take what remains." Meanwhile, in a hidden human command center beneath the Rockies, Commander Ross watched the same chaos unfold on multiple screens. Drones showed footage of alien ships sweeping through cities and rural zones. A general turned to him. "We can't fight both sides, Ross. The alien fleets demanded we surrender the girl, and our own people think she's a threat." Ross's jaw tightened. "She's not the threat. The ones chasing her are. Find her before they do, but do not engage unless absolutely necessary." He turned away, guilt flickering in his eyes. Deep down, he knew Ethan had been right all along. Back in the cave, snow drifted in from the entrance as Lyra sat cross-legged, her eyes glowing faintly. Ethan watched in silence as small sparks of golden energy hovered in the air around her. "What are you doing?" he asked. "I'm listening," she whispered. It's trying to show me something. The sparks brightened, forming faint shapes, mountains, a river, and then a strange metallic structure half buried in snow. Lyra gasped, "It's guiding us." Ethan leaned closer. "You're saying the child knows where we should go?" "Yes," she murmured. "Somewhere safe. Somewhere ancient." Without hesitation, Ethan packed their supplies. "Then, that's where we're going." They trekked through the snow for hours. The cold bit through Ethan's clothes, but Lyra's body radiated warmth like a small sun. As night fell, they reached a narrow ravine. Below, half buried in ice, stood the ruins of an old human research facility, long forgotten from the first alien wars. Ethan found an access hatch, rusted shut. With effort, he pried it open and led Lyra inside. The tunnels were silent, lined with frost and broken lights. They descended deeper until they reached a large chamber filled with dormant machinery. Faded human insignias were still visible on the walls. Project Dawn. Ethan brushed off a terminal. "Looks like a pre-war lab. Bioengineering, maybe? But why would your child bring us here?" Lyra placed her hand on the console. The screen flickered to life. Lines of alien and human code appeared, merging together in strange harmony. Her eyes widened. "It's connecting to both systems." "Both?" Ethan echoed. "Yes," she whispered. "It understands them, human and Velrath." Before Ethan could respond, the ground trembled. A low rumble echoed through the tunnel. He grabbed his rifle. "They found us." Outside, a formation of human assault vehicles converged on the coordinates, while alien fighters descended from the clouds. The two forces clashed violently in the snow, energy bolts and bullets lighting up the night. Inside the base, the walls shook. Ethan turned to Lyra. "We have to leave." She shook her head, eyes glowing fiercely. "No, the child is speaking. It's trying to do something." "Lyra," her voice was steady now. "It's reaching out to both species. It wants them to stop fighting." Ethan froze. "It can't." But it already was. A surge of golden light erupted from her body, flooding the entire facility. The light traveled upward through broken antennas, bursting into the sky like a beacon. Across the battlefield above, soldiers on both sides stumbled, lowering their weapons as the golden radiance spread over them. For a moment, everything went still, no gunfire, no shouting, only warmth and calm. Inside their minds, every human and Velrath soldier heard the same voice, soft, childlike, echoing with innocence. "Stop hurting. Please. We can be one." Ethan dropped to his knees beside Lyra as she trembled violently. "You're burning up." She gasped. "It's too much. It's channeling through me." He held her tight. "Then let me share it. You're not alone." Her eyes fluttered open, filled with tears and light. "Ethan, I can feel them all. Every mind, every fear. Then hold on to me. Remember us." She closed her eyes. Slowly, the energy stabilized. The beacon dimmed but remained, pulsing gently like a heartbeat across the frozen land. Above, soldiers on both sides stood in stunned silence. For the first time in generations, the two species saw each other not as enemies, but as reflections. When the light finally faded, Lyra collapsed into Ethan's arms. Her body was weak, her breathing shallow, but she smiled faintly. "It heard me," she whispered. "It spoke to them." Ethan brushed the hair from her face. "You did good. You both did." Her fingers trembled as she touched his chest. "They will come again, but not all will want war now. Some will want to understand." Ethan nodded, his voice low. "Then we'll show them what understanding looks like." Outside, the snow began to fall again, soft, peaceful, untouched by war. And deep beneath the ice, the unborn child pulsed brighter than ever, its faint voice echoing in both their minds. Not human, not alien, something new. High above the clouds, hidden far from radar, a lone Velrath vessel observed the aftermath. Inside, the Empress herself watched the golden glow fade from the horizon. Her advisor spoke softly. "Shall we strike, my queen?" The Empress shook her head slowly. "No, let her live. For the first time, I feel the future moving." She turned toward the stars. Let us see what her child becomes. The world changed the night the golden light touched the sky. Across continents, soldiers had dropped their weapons and stared upward. Even the battle-hardened Velrath captains, creatures raised to conquer, stood in silence, feeling something they couldn't name. For the first time in generations, there was stillness. But peace, even in its purest form, is fragile. Beneath the frozen earth, inside the ruins of Project Dawn, Ethan sat beside Lyra. The faint heartbeat of gold beneath her skin had steadied, its glow softer now, rhythmic like a lullaby. He brushed her hair from her face. You're getting weaker. She shook her head slowly. Not weaker, just different. The child draws strength from me, but it also gives it back. We're connected like a circle. He smiled faintly. Then I'll make sure that circle never breaks. A gentle pulse of warmth passed through the air, brushing his hand. It felt like gratitude, like the child was listening. Outside, the world argued. Human governments were split. Some saw the beacon as a miracle, others as a threat. Religious leaders called it the light of unity. Scientists called it an energy anomaly. And far above the chaos, the Velrath Emperor convened his war council. She has contaminated herself with human blood, he thundered. This so-called child is an abomination that could corrupt our species. But the Empress, standing beside him, whispered softly, or save it. The Emperor turned sharply. You sympathize with her? She was our daughter, the Empress said, her voice steady. You cast her out, and yet her light brought silence to war. Can you not see? She has done what your armies never could. The Emperor's jaw tightened. Then we shall see how long her peace lasts. He gestured to Lord Varric. Prepare the Crimson Legion. Find a princess before her message infects the galaxy. Back on Earth, the United Earth Council held an emergency broadcast. Commander Ross stood at the podium, his expression grim. Contact has been made with an alien princess carrying a hybrid life form. Both human and alien factions are mobilizing to claim it. We are urging restraint and cooperation. The feed cut abruptly, static, then a flicker of light. Lyra's face appeared on every screen across Earth, her eyes glowing softly, her voice calm and melodic. Humans, Velrath, we have warred for pride and fear. But inside me grows something neither of us can destroy. It carries both your strengths and your hearts. Let it be the bridge, not the blade. If you fear it, you will destroy yourselves. If you protect it, you will become something greater. The transmission ended. For several seconds, the world was silent. Then, cities erupted, not in panic, but in wonder. In the snowy ruins, Ethan looked at her in disbelief. You broadcast it across the whole planet? She smiled weakly. The child did most of it. It wanted to speak. Ethan let out a soft laugh. Guess I can't argue with destiny. But before they could rest, the sky rumbled again. The snow outside glowed red. Lyra's eyes widened. No, they've come. Ethan ran to the entrance. Above the mountains, dozens of alien ships pierced the clouds. The Crimson Legion, their crimson hulls shimmering like blades of blood. They found us, he whispered. The first strike came like thunder. Explosions tore through the mountainside as fire and light collided. Ethan grabbed Lyra's hand and pulled her deeper into the tunnels. We have to move, he shouted. She clutched her chest, staggering. Ethan, it's starting again. The energy. I've got you. They stumbled through collapsing corridors as the facility shook. Rubble fell around them. Lyra's glow flared, instinctively shielding them from debris. Outside, alien soldiers advanced through the snow. Human defense forces appeared on the horizon, firing back. The world was once again on the brink of total war. Inside the tunnels, Lyra suddenly stopped. Her body trembled violently, her breath coming in short bursts. It's happening, she gasped. Ethan turned, panicked. What's happening? The birth, she whispered, falling to her knees. It's coming too soon. He knelt beside her, terrified and helpless. Lyra, we can't do this here. You'll die. She grabbed his hand, her eyes filled with tears and light. No, we'll live. All three of us. Her energy surged, golden fire spilling from her skin. The air around them vibrated as if reality itself bent under the power. Outside, both human and alien soldiers paused mid-battle, weapons lowering as the light from a mountain pierced the clouds. A wave of warmth rolled across the land. Snow turned to shimmering mist. The sound of war fell silent. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was lying on the floor of a wide, glowing chamber that hadn't existed before. The walls shimmered like living crystal. Lyra sat at the center, cradling something. The first sunrise after the war was unlike any the world had ever seen. Golden light rippled across the atmosphere. Gentle, living light that touched oceans, deserts, forests, and cities alike. For a few miraculous hours, both species felt connected by a single heartbeat. Humans looked up from their ruins. Velrath warriors fell to their knees in silence. The skies no longer belonged to one people. They belonged to all. Beneath the glowing mountains, Ethan held the newborn close while Lyra lay weak, but smiling beside him. Her silver skin was dim now, her glow fading like a star at dawn. The child cooed softly, a faint warmth radiating from its tiny frame. Its eyes opened, one human brown, one golden like liquid fire, and fixed on Ethan. "She's looking right at you," Lyra whispered. Ethan smiled faintly, tears gathering in his eyes. "She's perfect." He looked at Lyra's pale face and felt panic rising. "You need rest. You're losing strength." "I'm fine," she said softly, but her trembling hands betrayed her lie. "The energy inside me is leaving. It's flowing into her. That's how our kind passes on power." "Then take it back," Ethan said desperately. "Take whatever you need." Lyra shook her head. "No, she is the future, not me." Outside, the world began to change. In orbit, the Velrath fleet hovered without command. The Crimson Legion's weapons powered down, their warships bathing silently in the golden light. On Earth, generals who had once plotted destruction were now meeting over holographic channels, their expressions uncertain, shaken. Commander Ross stood before the council, still in his battle uniform. "We confirmed all alien forces have ceased fire. Their ships are holding position, but not attacking." A senator leaned forward. "And the source?" Ross hesitated. "It's her, the princess, and the child. The hybrid," he nodded. "Whatever she gave birth to, it's sending some kind of energy signal. It's affecting both human and alien neural frequencies, bringing calm." The room fell into stunned silence. One scientist spoke up. "You're saying the child is controlling peace?" Ross stared out the window toward the distant mountains. "No," he said softly. "It's teaching it." Back in the crystal chamber, Lyra's breathing grew shallow. Ethan sat beside her, refusing to let go of her hand. "You promised me," he whispered. "You promised we'd see this through together." Her eyes fluttered open. "And we did. Look around you, Ethan. The war is over." He shook his head. "Not if I lose you." She smiled faintly. "You won't. I'll always be here." The baby stirred, its glow intensifying as if sensing its mother's weakness. A soft wave of warmth spread from its tiny form, washing over Lyra's body. The color returned to her skin, her breathing steadied. Ethan stared in disbelief. "It's healing you." Lyra looked down at the child, awe in her voice. "It's giving back what I gave it." Hours passed. The golden energy outside began to fade to a gentle shimmer. Lyra cradled the baby as Ethan kept watch. The storm had passed, but danger was never far away. Somewhere in orbit, he knew there were still leaders, both human and alien, who wouldn't accept what had happened. "Do you think they'll leave us alone now?" he asked quietly. Lyra shook her head. "No. Some will fear her. They'll try to control what they don't understand." Ethan sighed. "Then we'll protect her, however long it takes." Lyra looked up at him, her expression soft but fierce. "You would defy 2 galaxies for us." He smiled. "For you? I already did." Far above, the Empress of Velrath stood on her observation deck, watching the golden waves fade across space. "My emperor," Lord Varric reported. Our fleets are awaiting your orders. Should we strike before the humans regroup? The Emperor's eyes burned with rage. No, not yet. The light disrupted every weapon system we have. She's stronger than we thought. The Empress stepped forward, her voice calm. She is not an enemy. She's what our people prayed for, a rebirth. You exiled her for being barren, and yet she carried life itself. Varric clenched his jaw. Life mixed with filth. The Empress turned toward him, her eyes blazing. Then let that filth be our salvation. For the first time, the Emperor said nothing. He turned toward the glowing planet below and whispered, "Find her. Bring her to me." In the days that followed, reports spread across both civilizations. Rumors of the Golden Child, a being that could heal the sick and calm the violent simply by existing. Pilots who had once fired at each other now landed side by side to search for her. Monks, scientists, and even soldiers began to gather around the mountains where she was born, building shelters, studying the lingering light. But amidst the growing peace, shadows stirred. A splinter faction within the Velrath, led by Lord Varric himself, refused to accept the new order. If this hybrid lives, he told his followers, our bloodline dies. We will strike before it matures. That night, inside the crystal chamber, Lyra felt it, the tremor of danger. Her eyes snapped open. They're coming again. Ethan reached for his weapon. Who? Velrath purists. They want her gone. They're close. He stood, his voice steel. Then they'll have to get through me. But before they could move, the baby began to glow brighter, golden waves pulsing outward. Lyra gasped. She's responding to the threat. The energy burst outward from her tiny form, expanding faster than light. Outside, the enemy ships froze midair. Their engines shut down, their weapons powered off. Inside each pilot's mind, a gentle voice whispered, "No more fear." The soldiers, overcome with peace and clarity, slowly lowered their weapons. Some began to cry. Ethan stared at the light, his eyes wide. She's not fighting them, she's changing them. Lyra smiled faintly, tears rolling down her cheeks. She's what neither of us could ever be. Snow fell quietly over the mountains where peace had begun. The golden glow that once blanketed the world had faded into a soft warmth that now lived in the hearts of those who'd felt it. Soldiers had returned home. Fleets drifted silently in orbit. And for the first time in living memory, the galaxy seemed to breathe. Inside the Crystal Valley, Ethan watched as Eloria took her first steps. Her tiny feet left faint shimmering prints on the ground, each fading seconds after she moved. She looked no more than 2 years old, but her eyes, one human brown, one alien gold, held an ancient calm. She grows fast, Ethan murmured. Lyra, resting on a smooth stone bench, smiled faintly. Her silver skin reflected the morning light. She's not bound by time as we are. The energy inside her is both creation and memory. He knelt beside the child as she reached out to touch a crystal vine. The vine glowed under her fingertips and began to bloom. Ethan chuckled softly. She doesn't even know she's performing miracles. Lyra's gaze turned distant. That's what worries me. Beyond the mountains, the world was changing faster than anyone had expected. On Earth, nations that once stood on opposite sides of war now shared technology and resources. Humans learned to communicate with Velrath emissaries not through translators, but through shared resonance, a psychic link triggered by Eloria's energy wave. But peace came with fear. Some humans called Eloria the Child of Dawn, a divine messenger. Others, a potential weapon. Secret councils debated her existence in hidden bunkers. And far away, in the cold heart of the Velrath Empire, whispers of rebellion spread. Lord Varric, once disgraced after his failure to destroy Lyra, now commanded a growing movement known as the Purity Front. Their goal was clear: erase the hybrid before her influence spreads any further. She corrupts the minds of our youth, Varric hissed before his gathered followers. She makes them question what it means to be Velrath. If she lives, our blood will vanish into the void. He slammed his metallic fist against the table. We strike at dawn, quietly, permanently. Back on Earth, in the shimmering valley, Ethan awoke in the middle of the night to find a cave filled with light. Eloria stood at its center, her small body glowing with a brilliance that made the walls ripple like water. Her eyes were closed, her lips moving silently. He rushed toward her. Eloria! The air hummed with a deep resonance, like countless voices speaking as one. He reached her, but before he could touch her, she opened her eyes, and suddenly, he wasn't in the cave anymore. He stood on an endless plain of stars. Before him stretched visions of countless worlds, some human, some alien, some entirely unknown. Each world was connected by threads of gold. Eloria's voice echoed, soft and clear. They will come. They will try to stop what they fear. But fear is not stronger than truth. Ethan's throat tightened. What truth? She turned toward him. That life was never meant to be divided. The stars faded. The cave returned. Ethan blinked, his heart pounding. The glow dimmed, leaving only silence. Lyra appeared beside him, her expression calm but knowing. She showed you, didn't she? He nodded slowly. The future. The next morning, visitors arrived. A human delegation led by Commander Ross himself. Behind them, hovering quietly, were Velrath ambassadors. For the first time, the two sides entered the same chamber peacefully. Ross bowed his head toward Lyra. Princess. Cole, we come not as soldiers, but as witnesses. The world is changing, but not all are ready for it. There are concerns about the child's power. Lyra looked at him sharply. You mean fears? Ross didn't deny it. There are whispers of Velrath extremists preparing an attack. If they succeed, the peace we built will crumble. Ethan stepped forward. Then we stopped them before they reach her. The Velrath ambassador, a tall woman with deep violet eyes, spoke quietly. We have already tracked Varric's fleet. He moves under cover of the nebula near your moon. Ross turned to Ethan. You know her power better than anyone. Can she defend herself? Ethan looked at Eloria, playing quietly nearby, giggling as butterflies made of light dance around her. She could defend everyone, he said softly. But I don't want her to have to. That night, Lyra sat with Eloria under the stars. Do you know what's coming, my love? She asked softly. The little girl looked up at her mother, her golden eyes calm. They're angry, but they don't understand why. Lyra's heart ached, then helped them understand. Eloria nodded once, solemnly. When they come, I will show them what we are. 3 days later, Varric's fleet descended. Massive ships darkened the sky, their crimson energy spears aimed at the mountain valley. On the ground, humans and Velrath soldiers stood side by side, ready to defend what they now called a cradle of dawn. Ethan stood at the front, rifle in hand, though he knew it would do little. If this is it, he said, glancing at Lyra, I'm glad I found you before the end. She smiled softly. This is not the end, Ethan. It's the beginning. Eloria stepped forward, tiny and unafraid, her bare feet touching the earth. The sky thundered as Varric's command ship appeared overhead. Target locked, barked an alien pilot through comms. Before the order to fire could leave his lips, the sky split open in gold. Eloria raised her small hand. Light erupted from her palm, wrapping around the enemy fleet like silk. Inside the ships, soldiers screamed, not from pain but from realization. The golden wave flooded their minds with visions of both worlds. Earth's laughter, Velrath's songs, the fragile beauty of existence itself. They saw families, children, joy, fear. They felt love, the same love that had created the very child they sought to destroy. One by one, ships powered down. Pilots removed their helmets, tears streaming down alien faces. Varric alone resisted. His voice roared through the comms. You think love will save you? You think unity is strength? You will drown in your weakness. Eloria's voice echoed back, soft and unshaken. Then drown with me, and see it's not weakness at all. A single burst of golden light struck his ship. When it cleared, the fleet was gone, no explosion, no debris, just silence and calm skies. The soldiers lowered their weapons. The valley was still. Lyra collapsed to her knees, exhausted from channeling the connection. Ethan caught her, holding her close as Eloria approached quietly. It's done, the child said. Ethan looked at her, tears filling his eyes. "What did you do?" "I showed them everything," she whispered. "And when they understood, they disappeared. Not dead, changed." Lyra smiled weakly. "She didn't destroy them. She redeemed them." As night fell, the three of them sat together by the glowing river, the stars reflected in its surface, forming endless threads of gold. Ethan looked at Eloria, who now watched the heavens silently. "What happens now?" She smiled, a smile filled with light. "Now they learn to live." He placed an arm around Lyra. "And us?" Eloria's gaze turned to them, soft and loving. "You taught me what love is. That's all I needed to know." The wind carried her words through the valley like a hymn. The war was over, not by treaty, not by surrender, but by understanding. The valley, once scarred by fire, now shimmered with life. Flowers bloomed where craters had been. Rivers ran clear again, glowing faintly at night from the residue of golden energy that still pulsed within the earth. The sky, once torn apart by alien warships, had never looked so calm. In the heart of this new dawn, Ethan, Lyra, and their daughter Eloria lived quietly in a rebuilt sanctuary. The walls were made of crystal and stone, but the air itself seemed to hum softly with peace. Ethan stood outside, hands rough from rebuilding, staring at the horizon. Every morning, he still half expected ships to descend in the clouds, another army ready to claim the miracle child. Yet weeks passed, and none came. The galaxy was changing. Human and Velrath ships now traveled together, not for war, but for rebuilding. Trade routes opened. Cultural exchanges flourished. The once feared alien emperor had abdicated, replaced by the Empress, Lyra's mother, who vowed to guide both species into a new era of unity. And the child who had started it all was now a living symbol of that unity, though few ever saw her. Inside the sanctuary, Lyra was teaching Eloria how to focus her light. The little girl sat cross-legged, eyes closed, tiny hands glowing. "Remember," Lyra said softly, "the gift you carry must be gentle. Power is not strength if it doesn't heal." Eloria nodded. "I don't like using it when people are scared. It hurts." Lyra smiled faintly. "Then you already understand more than most adults ever will." Ethan leaned against the doorway, watching them with quiet pride. "She's got your wisdom," he said. Lyra looked up at him and grinned. "And your stubbornness." Eloria giggled. "And both your hearts." That night, after Eloria had fallen asleep, Lyra and Ethan sat under the stars outside their home. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if we hadn't met?" Ethan asked quietly. Lyra's golden eyes reflected the starlight. "I would have lived in a palace, wearing a crown that meant nothing. You would have worked in a garage, fixing machines that didn't deserve you." He laughed softly. "So you're saying destiny has good timing?" She leaned her head on his shoulder. "No," she whispered. "I'm saying love does." Months passed, and peace spread like sunrise across galaxies. But in peace, there are always questions. Scholars began to study Eloria's power, calling it the resonance. Some said it was divine. Others said it was evolution. And slowly, her presence began to draw pilgrims. Humans, Velrath, and other races who felt the echo of her light. They came to the mountains seeking wisdom, guidance, healing. Ethan was wary at first, but Lyra understood. She was born to guide them, she said. Let them come. One day, Eloria walked out to meet the visitors. She was older now, 8 years old by human count, though her mind seemed ageless. A wounded soldier knelt before her, shaking. "My people, we fought for centuries. How do we stop the hatred?" Eloria smiled gently and touched his forehead. "By remembering it hurt you first." When her hand lifted, the soldier wept, not in pain, but in release. Word spread faster than light. The child of dawn had healed a soldier's soul with a touch. And thus, the Order of Light was born, an alliance of humans and aliens sworn to protect peace, inspired by a child who was both. But peace had its cost. As Eloria's light grew, her energy began to merge with the world itself. The sky shimmered faintly wherever she walked. The plants she touched glowed for days. The atmosphere across regions began to vibrate with harmonic frequencies, beautiful but dangerous. Lyra sensed it first. Her power is expanding beyond her body, she said to Ethan one night, her voice trembling. She's connecting to everything. If it continues unchecked, her consciousness might dissolve into the energy field itself. Ethan's stomach dropped. You mean she'll die? Lyra shook her head. No, she'll become everywhere. But we'll lose her. Days later, as dawn broke, Eloria stood by the river, watching the reflection of the sun. Ethan approached quietly. You're thinking too hard for a kid. She looked up, smiling faintly. I can hear them all, Dad. Every voice, every heartbeat, every fear. He crouched beside her. That's a lot for one little girl. I'm not little anymore, she said softly. I'm becoming what I was meant to be. He felt his throat tighten. Then tell me, what's that? Her golden eyes shimmered. A bridge doesn't get to cross itself, Dad. It only lets others pass safely. He froze, realizing what she meant. You're not saying goodbye. Eloria's hand rose to his cheek, glowing warm. Goodbye isn't the same as gone. Lyra appeared behind them, tears already in her eyes. Eloria, the child turned to her mother. You taught me love. That's all I needed to carry. The air began to hum, soft at first, then rising into a melodic vibration that filled the entire valley. The river turned to gold. The wind stilled. Eloria stepped into the water, light spilling from her feet. Don't cry, she whispered. You'll still hear me in every sunrise, every heartbeat. Lyra clutched Ethan's arm, sobbing silently as her daughter turned into living radiance. The light rose higher, expanding outward like dawn breaking across eternity. Every city, every ship, every being in the galaxy saw it. And then a voice, soft, kind, eternal, spoke across all worlds. You are one life, one breath, one light. When the glow faded, the valley was quiet again. The river shimmered faintly with gold, but Eloria was gone. Only warmth remained, peace so deep it felt alive. Years passed. Humans in Velrath lived as one civilization. They built shared cities, flew together among the stars, and told stories of the girl who had changed everything. They called her Eloria the Eternal, the light that binds. And in quiet corners of the galaxy, when the wind carried a golden shimmer, people swore they could still hear a child's laughter. Ethan and Lyra grew old together in the same valley. They never left, though the world often came to them. One night, as the stars burned bright overhead, Ethan held her hand and whispered, Do you still hear her? Lyra smiled faintly, eyes half closed. Every day, in every heart you should allow. Rivers glowed faintly with reflected light. Even the air felt different, softer, filled with life. She's changing everything, Ethan said. Lyra nodded, not by force, by showing them how to feel again. That night, as stars shimmered above the quiet mountains, Lyra looked down at the child sleeping peacefully between them. What will we name her? Ethan asked. Lyra smiled. In my language, Eloria means light that binds. He whispered the name softly. Eloria. The baby stirred, as if answering to it, and a faint warmth filled the air once more, gentle, comforting, eternal. Heartbeat. He looked at her and chuckled softly. Then I'm not afraid anymore. Her voice was soft. She kept her promise. The wind stirred, carrying a faint golden glow over the river. Two faint lights rose together, joining the stars above. And somewhere, far beyond time, a small, familiar voice whispered to the galaxies, Thank you, Mom and Dad. I'll keep the light safe. The end Milky Way sparkles. pure understanding. By dawn, the skies were calm again. The enemy fleet had retreated, leaving behind only silence and golden clouds that glowed faintly over the mountain range. Ethan stood outside the chamber, the child in his arms, watching the horizon. Lyra joined him quietly, leaning against his shoulder. "Look," she whispered, "the world is healing. Fields that had once been scorched by battle were now alive with color. Plants grew faster than nature